The next Mass Effect is still a ways off, but as we get closer to the next bit of information from Bioware, today I'd like to talk about the option of importing our older save files from the Legendary Edition and Andromeda into the next Mass Effect game.
Lockhart QT.
Ever since the original trilogy of Mass Effect games, we've had the option to import and carry over our save files from one game to another, but what if we had the option to import save files from past games, i.e. the Legendary Edition and Mass Effect Andromeda, going forward into the next title? So obviously in the past you could import save data and files from Mass Effect 1 to Mass Effect 2 and then into Mass Effect 3. This carried across your class history, leveling, romances and overall choices that impact the story. This was always really cool in my opinion because I think the strongest element of Mass Effect, other than the actual world building and the characters, is the fact that when you play the OG trilogy, even the intensely, smaller choices and side quests have somewhat of an impact going into the next games. For example, there's a side quest in Mass Effect 1 where you make a choice and then you talk to that character in Mass Effect 3, and depending on sort of if you did that quest for them, how you treated them, this will then impact something else in Mass Effect 2 and 3, and I think that's really cool in my opinion. Having these choices also really made an impact on the overall trilogy for me, and this overall, because the choices carried over from Mass Effect 1 to Mass Effect 2 to Mass Effect 3, made Mass Effect 3 feel like the entire culmination of the series. And then importing save files was then carried over into the Legendary Edition of Mass Effect, and it gets even easier here because it's all Mass Effect 1, 2 and 3 is all in one menu, and it carries across because it's on one disc. But my main piece of evidence to suggest that we could be able to import our save files into the next Mass Effect game is that, fun fact by the way, you can actually import your old save data from Mass Effect 1, 2 and 3 into the Legendary Edition on PC, which I think is really cool. It's a bit more complicated as it involves actually going into your save files on your PC, and you may have to, get up a YouTube guide or an online guide to do it, but it's still really cool nonetheless. And by this logic, I'd say it's likely that we'll be able to import our Legendary Edition save data files into the next Mass Effect game, whether it be Mass Effect 4 or Mass Effect 5. And if the next game is set 1 to 10 years after Mass Effect 3's ending, then this makes it even more viable in my opinion, because as by doing this, Bioware can keep older fans happy by letting us import our choices and romances from Mass Effect 3 all the way into the next title. Because for a lot of people, I think Mass Effect 3 is now 11 years old, something like that, 10, 11 years old. So I think it'd be really cool if people who have still got those save data can, on PC at least, or somehow on console, transfer that save data into the next Mass Effect game, and it carries across your romances such as Tali, Liara, Garrus, Miranda, and then which ending you chose in Mass Effect 3. How on earth they'd write a new story based on all the 4 endings, I have no idea. But I know you're thinking, and I know you're asking the question, what if the person playing the next Mass Effect game is entirely new to the series? Well, Bioware already have a solution to this. A really good example that was actually in Mass Effect 3, because the fact that Mass Effect 3 was on different consoles, it was on PC, Xbox 360, PS3, but it was then eventually released on the Wii U back in the day. But the problem with this was that Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2 weren't actually on the Wii U, so there was no save data and no past choices to go off. So since Mass Effect 3 relied so heavily on past choices from 1 and 2, Bioware made a way around this via an interactive comic that let you make past choices for Mass Effect 1 and 2. By the way, if you haven't seen the interactive comic for Mass Effect 3 on Wii U, it's actually really cool. Based on which gender you pick, the comic is narrated by Shepard and basically goes over the past events of Mass Effect 1 and 2 pretty well, whilst letting you make key choices, for example who survives on Vermeer, Caden or Ashley, and then what to do with the collector base, because obviously that then goes into Mass Effect 3 straight away. So I think that for the next Mass Effect game, especially if it takes place straight after the original trilogy, I think they could re-implement this backstory comic, or another means by retelling past events, and letting you reselect your choices and romances from past games. And if the game is set in Andromeda's timeline instead of the OG trilogy, or sort of in between, or is impacted on the story in any way, then the same can be done here, by also retelling the events of Mass Effect Andromeda, letting you pick your romance for that game, and your choices as well. I also think Bioware could give us special camos, weapon, gear, and other maybe fun cosmetic choices if you have save data of the Legendary Edition or Mass Effect Andromeda, or if you've at least played it at some point, because I think this would be a really cool way of, for the next Mass Effect game, essentially Bioware saying thank you to the old fans for being fans for so long, because I know people that have been playing these games since Mass Effect 1 launched, and I think it'd be a really cool way for them to say thank you by saying, okay, if you've played the old games, the Legendary Edition or Andromeda, here are some special things. It probably have to be cosmetic, so it wouldn't be game breaking, to say thank you for playing these past games. Sadly, originally Mass Effect Andromeda actually didn't do this at all, but here's hoping Bioware decide to do this in the future. So anyway guys, what do you think? Do you think we'll be able to import save data from the Legendary Edition Andromeda into the next game? I really hope they do this, as I think this would be a really nice way of continuing your story, because people are still really attached to both Shepard, Ryder and their respective squad mates in those stories. So I think it'd be a really nice way into going into the next trilogy of games. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to drop a subscribe and drop a like on the video, as it really helps the channel, makes me really happy just to see the support on the Mass Effect videos. I love Mass Effect, I love making videos on it. So anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.